Well, it's great to see you all here. I want to talk to you today about the future, the near future, as you've seen in my title there, of the civil infrastructure products at Autodesk, specifically Infraworks and Civil 3D. And I'm going to talk to you about what we're working on. And other presentations you've seen here so far have been big concepts, things that we're looking at kind of far out there, but I want to talk about something a little closer. I can't tell you how close, but without getting myself into trouble, but I can tell you these are things that we're actively working on in the products. Speaking of getting myself into trouble, I'm going to throw this disclaimer slide up here, and you're invited to read the whole thing, but the gist of it is, don't break out your phone, go to the Autodesk store, and buy any Civil 3D or Infraworks based on what I'm about to tell you. So, and basically, the meaning is there's no guarantee that you're going to see something in the software until you actually see it in the software. So just know that. So what I've done is I've broken down what's going on at Autodesk behind the scenes with our product development into 3 questions, kind of hypothetical questions that I want to offer to you. And I'm going to answer each one of these questions with actual initiatives that our product teams use to guide them as they make decisions on what features they're going to develop or not. And the first one is, how do you want to work? Now that's a pretty vague question, so let's get a little more specific. Do you want to work in an isolated way or a collaborative way? And maybe a better way to phrase this is, what kind of challenges are you running into today? When you need to share data with people you're working with, and let's say it's people outside of your company, partners and clients, are you feeling like you're kind of having to chuck the data up over the wall and you're never really sure what's going to fall down on the other side? Unless, of course, you get that phone call at the most convenient time possible. Or how about within your office? Do you feel like you have challenges collaborating with folks that you work with? And folks using different Autodesk products, maybe you've got a Revit user and a Civil 3D user and an Infraworks user in your company, and you'd like to see it become easier to transfer data between those products. Or maybe you're the person in your company that uses all of those products, and you'd like to see it become easier to move data between them just for yourself. Well, I'll answer that need with the first initiative that our product team works by. And that is delivering connected BIM with a common data environment. You heard Angie and Ken talk about that yesterday. And enabling cloud-connected workflows. At Autodesk, we know, and this includes our civil infrastructure product teams, we know that collaboration is a major step in the evolution of design, and that the cloud is an enabler of that collaboration. Just look at what we've done so far with A360, BIM 360 that you just heard about, the Forge platform, and even some of the services and functions of Infraworks that utilize the cloud and the cloud sharing capabilities. We've only just begun. The vision at Autodesk, as you've seen numerous times, even just this week, is a connected one. Through the Forge platform and development of product APIs, we're working harder and harder every day to enable that cloud collaboration. But anytime you bring up the cloud, you have to talk about security. We understand that your clients are nervous about putting things in the cloud, anywhere in the cloud, whether it's with Autodesk or Google or Amazon or whatever the cloud happens to be for them. We know that they have concerns about that. So we're also working every day to pass stricter and stricter data and service requirements for our cloud data storage and services. I want to show you a video of kind of where we are right now with well, before I do that, I do want to bring up one more type of collaboration. And that's the smaller scale collaboration. So I talked about the cloud a minute ago, and that's big scale, sharing across the world. But that other kind of sharing that I talked about a moment ago, which is just between Autodesk products, that's a type of collaboration also. And that's another area that we've been dedicated to in developing features in our software that make them talk to each other better. And that's actually the video I want to show you next. This is a specific example, that being bridge design, and here you're going to see a little bit about how our products talk together with that workflow. So as you can see, we've already been busy with improving the collaborative capabilities of our products, but we've only just begun. Here's some planned improvements for collaboration with Civil 3D. What if you could launch Infraworks 360 right from the Civil 3D environment? Or imagine, if you will, better collaboration between Civil 3D and 3ds Max, or even expanded browser capabilities, enabling you and anyone to view the models that you create more easily in a simple browser. These are all ways that we're working toward expanding collaboration between our products and then with people that you work with. All right, the next question. Again, a little bit vague, but I'll get into detail. Where do you want to be? What I'm talking about here is, what environment do you want to work in when you're creating? As Lynn mentioned, I've got a little bit of a background in music, so music analogies work for me. Imagine you're writing a song, and whether you're a musician or not, this should work for you. Just imagine if you're writing a song, and you've got two choices of the environment you want to work in. You've got a paper and pencil, or you can sit down at an instrument. With the first example, you have to imagine what the song is going to sound like when it's actually played. You can look at the notes as you write them, and of course they mean something to you, but would they mean something to somebody else? Contrast that with sitting down at the piano or another instrument, and as you're creating the song, you can hear and feel the music. It's a more immersive experience, and it's one that at times could be a lot more efficient and productive when you think about it. So the answer, in this case, where would you like to be as far as the environment you work in? The true answer is probably both environments based on what you're doing at the time. Even if you're writing a song using an instrument, a lot of times you hit that point where you just have to work out that weird time signature or something on a piece of paper. You have to dig into the details. So really, we need both of these ways, whether you're writing songs or performing civil engineering design. So when you're creating and designing for civil engineering projects, what environment do you want to work in? Colored lines on a flat black screen? Or a very immersive environment where things look like they really are? Roads look like roads, bridges look like bridges, pipes look like pipes. And then we can superimpose some design information on top of that, kind of like augmented reality. Using the musical analogy, the example on the left, you have to imagine in your mind what that design is going to look like. So you have to spend some of that imagination power for that purpose. But the example on the right, that immersive environment, you can focus all of your imaginative energy on the actual design, coming up with a solution to the problem. And in the product, we'll do the imagination part for you to actually visualize or imagine how the project's going to look in the real world. So this brings me to the next initiative that our product team is working with. It's the transitioning of Infraworks to an engineering design authoring tool and a platform for transportation. So that immersive environment that I was just talking about, we don't want that to be a visualization environment for you. We want it to be a design environment. We want you to put your imagination into creating and designing, not into having to think and imagine what the project's going to look like. Let's look at a video at where we're at so far with turning Infraworks 360 into an engineering tool. That's where we are today. And I bet a lot of you are surprised to see some of the very engineering-esque features that were just shown in that video alone. Now, if you look at the evolution of Infraworks, it started here as a visualization and data aggregation environment. How many of you remember Autodesk Infrastructure Modeler? Any hands out there? And back then, it truly was a visualization environment. There were some very basic tools. I don't even know that I'd call them design or engineering tools. But we've come a long way since then. And now we're talking about an environment where geometry comes first, and visualization is just a byproduct of that. It's much more than just a pretty picture. If you take a look at the image on the screen, we're looking at underlying cross-sectional geometry for this road. We're picking out important features like the road centerline and edges of pavement. And we're picking out features like the slopes of the lanes. And let's not forget about the annotations that you see on the screen that tell you important engineering information about what you're seeing. Things, again, like slopes, elevations, stations, and so on. And it does another engineering type thing, Infraworks. It'll calculate your roadside grading for you, much the same way Civil 3D does. Roadside grading, daylighting, side slopes, whatever you happen to call them. This is an engineering function. And by the way, it looks pretty darn good too. And as I said, this visualization capability is just a byproduct. It's something that is a nice to have. It's about the engineering and the geometry. So that's where we are now. What's coming in the future? Here's what we're planning. We're going to continue to improve those annotation capabilities, sharing more and more information with you as you design and engineer things in your Infraworks models. We're also working on more detail with the quantification that you do. When you run road quantities, we want to include things like the individual components of the roads. We want to include 3D models along the road, things that represent signs and light poles and other things. We want it to count up those objects as well. We want it to include bridge components and drainage components. We know that quantities are really important to you as a byproduct of the designs that you're creating. On a different note, what if you could create custom bridge components from right within the Infraworks environment? You could do this in Chameleon up till now, but that's outside of the software, and Chameleon is a labs project. But what if this actually made its way into Infraworks itself? We're planning ways to improve the way that you modify grading zones. Don't know if you all know this, but you can actually split your roadside grading into pieces and apply different slopes and build transitions between those slopes. A lot of people don't know that it's capable of doing those kinds of detailed engineering practices. We're also working to improve the way you convert style-based roads to component-based roads, just to name some of the things we're doing. Last question. Where do you need to be? Again, a pretty vague question, so let me dig in a little deeper. What I'm talking about here is dependence on old methods. Think about buying a cup of coffee. You can walk into the coffee shop and pay with your smartphone, and money is magically transferred from your bank account to the store owner's bank account. Or you could walk in and pull out your wallet and hand out a few dollar bills. Two very different methods. And it's interesting with all of the incredible technology that we have. I mean, just look at credit cards. They've been around for decades. Moving on to paying with smartphones, debit cards, whatever. We have all these amazing connected ways of paying for things, but yet almost all businesses out there still accept cash. Why is that? We're in a world where paper still rules. It's pretty much the deal. It's the world we live in. And it's also true with civil engineering projects. We have the technology and the capability to build a model in Infraworks or Civil 3D or any product like it, and have that model go directly to the field for construction. Now, I know there are things that have to happen in between, but we could technically skip the documentation process and go straight to a GPS-guided machine in the field. But that's not the world we live in. Just because we can do that, that doesn't mean that's what we actually do. We still live in a world where we have to produce documentation for our projects, for review, for bidding, for construction, and for our processes internally. We work with lots of people that rely on those drawings, that still want to break out the red pencil. So we still need to be there. So the answer to the question of where do you need to be is really both places. You need to be able to create design models that are detailed enough to go out to the field and be uploaded to a GPS-guided machine. But you also need to create documentation of those projects. You need to still create those plan sets. The good news is one of the initiatives that our product teams live by is driving continued adoption of Civil 3D for detailed design and documentation, focusing on transportation. In other words, Civil 3D is not going anywhere. And not only is it not going anywhere, we're as dedicated as ever to developing it further than it is now. Let's take a look at some things that we're working on for the near future of Civil 3D. Imagine, if you will, being able to create a feature line that's linked to a surface. And if that surface changes, the feature line responds automatically. Anyone in the audience that could use that feature? Yeah, I see some hands going up. Now, how many of you know what a bow tie is in Civil 3D? Yeah, we've got some hardcore Civil 3D users here. For those of you who don't, there's an issue that we've had to deal with for a while where in very tight spaces where we're doing grading calculation solutions, where the gradings kind of flip over on each other and we get this little bow tie shape. We have to go in as users and fix that up. Well, wouldn't it be nice if we didn't have to do that anymore, if we had an automated way of doing that? Now, I don't know if James Wedding is in the audience, but this is no offense to you, James. We like it when you wear bow ties, but we don't want to see them in our Civil 3D drawings. What if you could use a corridor feature line as a baseline in another corridor? I could see some wheels spinning on that one. What if we built in pipe analysis and sizing right into Civil 3D? Oh wait, we actually already did that with the update enhancements for this release, the 2017 release of Civil 3D. And what about swapping pressure pipe parts? How many of you have been waiting for that one for a long time? Yeah. Well, that one actually has already been released as well. That's in the update to Civil 3D 2017. So that just has to do with the detailed design part of it. We're also planning improvements for the documentation part. We want to make it easier for you to work in the sheet sets that Civil 3D creates. And we also have already released functionality that lets you include property set data in your labels, greatly expanding the kinds of information that you label on your documents. So I think it's clear, looking at all of the stuff that's in the works, that our dedication to Civil 3D is just as strong as it ever was. So to summarize, I'll ask Autodesk a question: where are we going? And just taking a look at those three product team initiatives once again. We intend to deliver a connected BIM experience now and even better in the years to come. We're transforming Infraworks into an engineering design tool. And we remain committed to Civil 3D as your primary detailed design and documentation tool. Thank you.